Welcome to the Beyond Jiu-Jitsu podcast. This is, what episode is it, Adam?
It is episode 157. Kieren.
Yeah, okay, 157. Today we're talking about some things, some stuff, and some other shit.
And also not a lot of stuff. Yes, we're talking about, this is why you're not getting any better at jiu-jitsu. So we're going to go over some common reasons for lack of progression in jiu-jitsu.
First of all, I've got the first cab off the rank.
Training with me.
It's because you're a bitch. No,
Yeah.
That was the terrible. Too much of a wind up.
No, but there is there's definitely that's on the list, being a bitch.
You're a bitch.
But as always, bit of banter, bit of intro. So I specifically left this off our hitting record button conversation. So Kieren and I were just talking a little bit about social media and, being exposed to comments and people, keyboard warriors, people saying mean things, people trolling you, all this sort of stuff. And then so that led me to something I was about to mention, but I wanted to ask a question. If you could, let's imagine you owned your own country. Let's say you were a ruthless dictator. No, you don't have to be ruthless, but let's just say you were like a president or a dictator of a country and whatever. Obviously, ignore the logistics side of this playing out, but just imagine you could make a rule or a law or something. Do you have something that if you're like, man, if I was president of this country, this shit wouldn't be allowed?
Yeah, I do actually. And it's something, that I've been thinking about a lot. I would make it legally mandated that you have to change your bed sheets at least once a week. That would be my law.
Oh my God.
I almost sent you. I didn't send you this.
Did we? So people, this is a joke referencing a conversation from our last episode, but I'm being curious. Has anyone sent you any comments or anything about their lack of changing bed sheets? No
one has. And if you do, you're just a grub. But I did see a video on my wife's TikTok, and she sent it to me, and I was like, I'll send that to me because I wanted to send it to you, Adam. But I don't think I did. But it was like this doctor, and he was talking about research that has been done on this exact topic, and he was saying that the average single man, they've done surveys, doesn't change their bed sheets. They change them once every 4 months. 4 months. And
Sounds
the average,
right.
I think the average single woman was once every 2 weeks. So at least obviously women are less grubby. But in the video, they say that medical professionals recommend that you change your bed sheets at least a minimum of once per week. Optimally, it's twice per week. Yeah. And they go into like specific reasons why it affects your immune system, your health. Like it actually makes you like unhealthy. It's not just like a little bit of a grubby thing, like leaving the dishes in the sink overnight or whatever. People do that. That's like, it's not super cleanly, but whatever. It's not like that. It actually makes you sick. It makes you more prone to illness. So this is my another rant. This is a Beyond Sheets podcast, bro.
Kieren's country is just like, no, we don't have sheets here. You don't get them. I don't trust you people.
Yeah, you can't be trusted with it. I've taken away all the sheets. So fuckers don't change them anyway.
Well, I've got two things that I would put in place for my country. And one would be trolls / let's maybe just the broader term or more accurate term, I guess, for what gets under my skin is keyboard warriors. There would be I don't care how the system's built, but there would be a system built that is essentially from a South Park episode or something. If you're a trolling keyboard warrior, the person you're trolling, like, they get given your address and free to go punch you in the face, kick you in the balls or something. There's consequences.
Fuck.
And I don't care. It's going to cost billions of dollars, but it would be like policed and everything. That's
15-year-old version of me would have had his balls smashed. I'm telling you.
Yeah. Or something, or like, you get like, I don't know, the punishment for trolling comments or being an online troller or a keyboard warrior is like you get a 1 week ban from the internet or something. There would be something, you know, like.
Yeah.
And my second rule would be every single escalator in the country would have a security dude standing at the top and at the bottom. And if you get to the bottom and you've been standing on the wrong side of the escalator, you get kicked in the nuts.
Oh, okay. Well, which side would that be in your country?
No,
drive on the left or the right?
Yeah, that's right. It depends, right? If you drive on the left, you stand on the left, right? It's in America, Brazil, somewhere you drive on the right, you stand on the right. But people need to stand on the correct side of the escalator. It's infuriating. I hate it.
What if you're like with your partner and you stand side by side?
Even worse. That's
so you both get kicked in the nuts.
Yeah, that's right. That's two people being inconsiderate to like all the people behind them.
And what if you don't have nuts?
Yeah, I don't know. Look, the semantics
nuts will be assigned to you.
That's right. Yeah. But that's my country. With our countries combined, there's clean sheets. There's proper escalator etiquette, and everyone behaves appropriately online. What a lovely place, bro. Yeah.
Well, they've come up with ideas, you know, for the next generation of the internet is, you know, to fix this troll problem, whatever, to make it so you cannot post anonymously. You have to post, you know, with your at least your name and profile picture or whatever, and it's like registered to you. That's pretty much a dictatorship version of the internet. But people have spoken about that. I don't really agree with it, but you know, just throwing it out there, food for thought. That has been speculated, because I find that most people that troll are from anonymous accounts. You know, you will get people that troll openly, but it's so funny. Have you seen on Instagram? Maybe you haven't, but this is a thing on Instagram, right? There'll be like a viral video on Instagram, on Reels or wherever it is, and someone will have like a negative comment, super negative comment, and the highest voted negative comment, like highest liked negative comment or whatever, if you go to their profile, particularly if it's controversial, if you go to their profile, people will take the first post of that person and just smash them. Like if they disagree with the comment. I found one the other day, and there was literally hundreds and hundreds of comments on this random chick's picture, just smashing her appearance, like just making fun of her because she made fun of some dude for what he was wearing in a video or something ridiculous. Like the viciousness of the internet is just insane. Like, man, people are assholes. Is the point.
Yeah, it can be pretty unpleasant sometimes. Anyway, that's why we're here. Let's go into it. Let's talk about some of the reasons why, in my opinion, I see people struggling to progress, or you know, the plateau or the blue belt blues or whatever you want to call it, right? And the first one I want to say is a bit of an opposite point of view of what you would expect me to say, but it's that people are training too much. No, I'm not. No. I was ahead of time. I was like, I'm going to double down on this and like see how long I can go before Kieren realizes I'm full of shit. But no, fuck, man. People, like, very simply, the first one, super simple. You're not training enough, man. Like, and going back to, I guess this kind of segues to what we were just talking about and my dictatorship in my future country. But on an earlier episode of ours, like, you know, 100 episodes ago or more, we're talking about training frequency or something like that. And we said something along the lines of, if you just train twice a week, you know, like, don't expect great things, something like that.
Yeah. And
man, we had like a couple of people, one person in particular who was super essentially saying that, like, yeah, man, you can train only twice a week and go on to become a world champion and one of the greatest of all time, you know, blah, blah, blah. And it was like, no, bro, no, like in no profession, sports or otherwise, are people reaching the one percenters with turning up twice a week. You know, like show me a lawyer who's making partner without doing like 80-hour work weeks. Like, I'm not saying that like work crunch is healthy and whatever. It's a whole different conversation. But like the point is, he ain't doing a 16-hour week and and making partner, or that Harvard med student isn't going on to become one of the top brain surgeons in the country with only ever practicing medicine 2 days a week. And it's the exact same in jiu-jitsu and sports. Now, obviously that's quite a extreme example that I'm giving, because I kept saying like the 1%ers, the Gordon Ryans, the Meragalis, right? But even that aside, even just to go on and get good at it, to get proficient at it, to continue to progress at something that becomes more difficult to progress at as you go along. If you're just putting in those 2 days a week, that's fine. If that's all you want out of jiu-jitsu, that's okay. But that's not the conversation we're having. The conversation we're having is, if you're feeling like let's say you're a blue belt, purple belt, and you feel like you're not getting any better, one, this might not be your case specifically, but a very common reason I see is, well, you're not training enough. And it does get harder the higher belts you go. Like, getting twice a week, you can easily, a lot of people train twice a week and that gets them to blue belt. A lot of people. The research shows, it's not like there's a whole bunch of papers out there, but from my experience of me teaching and from, managing other gyms and working alongside, one of the most successful jiu-jitsu guys in Fabio Gurgel, the average person trains 2 to 3 times a week, right? So, if you were doing a formula, 2.5 times a week, the average person trains. So if you train twice a week, like, don't expect to be anything more than average, and twice a week easily can get you a blue belt. But then past that, man, like, why do you think people sit on a blue belt for 5-6 years or something? If you're training twice a week, I don't see many people who train, instead of saying days a week, let's say jiu-jitsu sessions, right? Like, I don't see many people who fit in like 7 to 10 jiu-jitsu sessions a week sit at blue belt for 5 years, 5-6 years, like they're putting the work in.
Yep.
And so, man, like, another example I always give to explain this to a lot of my own students as well is, for me, I feel like it only gets more difficult, right? Like, kind of like, that the amount of effort that you put in to get from white to blue, people then think that the progression is going to be this linear incline on a graph or whatever. So they continue to put in that effort, but it's like, no, man, like, the effort required from blue to purple is like double what you were just doing. And then they get their purple. It's like the effort required from purple to brown. Okay, it's not then double again, but you know what I mean? Like, it's more effort than you were just doing. And I always say something along the lines of, it's, your jiu-jitsu is kind of like, okay, maybe you don't have to think about it like university. For me, I treated it like my university or my college or whatever, because it's what I chose to do as a career. But maybe don't think about it like that if you're just a hobbyist, but it's still, think about it like you're enrolled in some type of course, some type of learning. Maybe you're just doing a 2-year, degree or some 2-year course in a skill you want to acquire. Like, in what world have you ever met anyone who said to you like, oh man, well, my first year of med school was way harder than when I was doing my master's? It's like, no, bro, like, it only gets harder. Like, the higher up you get, the harder it gets, the more work it requires, like, oh man, I remember when I did that small local white belt comp, it was way harder than black belt worlds. What, man? Oh God, man. ADC trials was so easy compared to when I was competing as a white belt. Like it only gets fucking harder, bro. You know?
Yeah.
And
I've got a lot to say about this. Well, if you give everyone the benefit of the doubt and say that their 2 sessions per week are an hour and a half, in 1 year, you'll do 156 hours of jiu-jitsu.
which is not much.
No, it's fuck all, man, in 1 year, right? So if you expect, right, that you say you get your blue belt after a year, which is maybe not the average. So maybe the average is like a year and a half at white belt to get blue. I don't know. Maybe you could tell me that better than I. But if you then keep that same effort, right, to go from blue to purple, in 2 years, if you only train twice per week, again, assuming that you're doing an hour and a half session, which a lot of gyms are only an hour, that's 312 hours of training jiu-jitsu. That is fuck all, man. That is fuck all in terms of actually being competent at the sport. Yeah, you can get a karate black belt in that time, in 3 years. You know, your 12-year-old kid probably has a fucking karate black belt in, 2 years if you pay for the special accelerator program or whatever. Jiu-jitsu is not like that. And one thing, whenever we talk about this, right, whenever we talk about this, we get interesting takes on it, and we get people that get angry and really personally offended by what we're saying, because I think that it's, one, the truth, and two, they don't want to hear it. They don't want to know it because they're not willing to put in the hours that it's required to train more. They're not willing to do the work. And if their body can't handle it, then you need to be doing stuff off the mats, and they're not willing to do that either. And a lot of the time, the comments are something along the lines of, although the arguments against it is like, oh, why would I treat a hobby like a job? Why would I invest 6 hours a week in my hobby? That's dumb. Like, it's a fucking hobby. I do this to have fun and stay fit. Yeah, cool, man. That's awesome. But you won't be you're never gonna fucking be as good as you want to be. You can't have your cake and eat it too. You can't, on the one hand, say, I want to get really good at jiu-jitsu. I want to get really good at this hobby that I love. I want to get a purple belt. I want to be fucking awesome. I want to smash everyone in my gym and, be confident, feel like I've earned my belt and hold my own at the same time. You can't, want all those things, but then on the other hand, be like, oh, it's a hobby. Why would I go more than twice a week anyway? Like, I'm not willing to study for it. I'm not willing to put in the work. And it's very dismissive is what I'm saying about it being a hobby. And whenever people hear how often I train, they're like, oh, bro, you do all that for a hobby? I get these comments all the fucking time on all my shit. It's like, why? Like, this dude is obsessed with a hobby. Like, what a loser. You know what I mean? But who the fuck do you think is coaching you in jiu-jitsu? Do you think your coach trained twice a week to get as good, to teach you? Like, this brings me to my next point in this rant, is there's not much respect for jiu-jitsu coaches, because people like in their life, jiu-jitsu is their hobby. But for your coach, they treated it like a career. Like, if they're good and reputable, they treat it like a career. They put the fucking hours in. They did their study. They sacrificed a period of their life where they moved to a gym where they could learn how to, like your situation, for example, you lived in fucking Brazil for 5 years. You treat it like a university degree. You sort out the best gym, and you're, on the one hand, you're like the exception to the rule because not many people do that. But on the other hand, a lot of the best coaches in the world do that and go through those hardships. Jeremy Skinner, a good friend of mine, who won ADCC trials, Oceania, last ADCC trials. He spent years and years and years absolutely grinding, trying to scrimp and save every cent and just training jiu-jitsu religiously to be what he is today, like an amazing coach and a high-level black belt competitor. I'm not saying everyone wants that, but if you want to be good at the sport, you need to put in the work. And I'm just sick of people dismissing, the grind that it takes, particularly the lower belts that are putting in the work on the mats to make jiu-jitsu their career, dismissing them and like making fun of them as though they're just a loser because they're putting all their time into a hobby. That's my rant.
Yeah. And I mean, that's exactly it. Like you said, if someone just wants it as a hobby to do it a couple of times a week, that's fine. But you can't have that mentality, but then also be questioning why you're not getting better and why you're not getting your belts. Like, if you're okay with that, like, and you meet people, man, who have been purple belts for like 10 years and, you know, they kind of have maybe like come to accept the fact that maybe they'll never get their next belt, or, you know, if they do, it'll be a throwaway belt, and they just do it for fun and the social activity and the mental health aspects, whatever it is.
And that's fine.
And yeah, and that's fine.
Awesome.
But we're talking about, you know, if you're wondering why you're not getting any better, why you're not progressing. And yeah, it does take the work, and you could, honestly, it's the same in any other sports. The only thing that makes it slightly different in jiu-jitsu is that there are these so-called visible ranks, you know, with the belts, or even if you ignore the belts, there's ranks in terms of like how well you do in competitions, if you will. But, you know, people still want to get better. Like, imagine saying the same thing to someone who surfs. Like, so many people who surf as a hobby, right? They still want to catch a bigger wave. They still want to, you know, maybe not necessarily big wave to the level of, it's not always about the size, you know, but they want to catch the best they want to catch the best waves. They want to, you know, be able to stay in the barrel for longer or whatever. And a lot of people who surf they do it every day. Like, they go like every day, man, they're in the water, right? Oh, fucking, you do that just for a hobby, you know, like, you know.
They prioritize it. They love it. They want to be better.
There's a lot of people who, you know, go to indoor rock climbing gyms daily. They're not looking to become a professional rock climber. It's just a hobby they enjoy, and they realize that if they want to get better, they got to train more and go more.
Here's a good one for you. Chess. If you want to get better at chess, you need to play chess every fucking day. You need to study chess. You need to study openings. You need to study tactics and end games. And you know, you can't expect to climb the ELO scale, you know, even if it's just online, or, you know, without playing chess and practicing and you know, putting in the work. And anyone that has played competitive chess or is trying to climb the ELO in chess knows that if you do it twice a week, imagine if you played chess twice per week and then was like, oh, why aren't I getting better? Because you're only fucking playing twice per week, bro. Like, that's why you're getting better.
Yeah, like the obviously twice a week compared to 0 is great, but the ceiling is very low. Like,
exactly.
You hit the ceiling relatively early in terms of like how long of a journey jiu-jitsu can be. But it goes back.
Sorry, go on.
I was just going to say, it goes back to that whole, you know, you said you can't have your cake and eat it too. Like, one of the main things people love about jiu-jitsu is that it's, you know, quote unquote, the non-bullshit martial art, you know, like it can all be proven and whatever, like it can all be proven on the mat. So, man, like, you can't just want this like progression and belts and whatever, but then not also do what's required to get it. And yeah, you don't have to want to pursue it as a career, but it's no different to if you lift weights twice a week, you'll get some gains, and, you know, but the ceiling would be very low, right? And then if you're just wanting to lift because you enjoy it and it's exercise and whatever, cool. But like, imagine someone lifting twice a week and expecting like, why aren't I putting on muscle like, you know, fucking Arnold Schwarzenegger? Like, you'd be like,
not on steroids, bro.
Yeah, I know. but even if you were, right, you know, like, it'd be like, fuck, you know.
Yeah, 100% agree. 100% agree. And yeah, I was just going to say, on top of your point, that there's a big difference between getting your belt and progressing in skill. And that makes, it should be the same, but there are gyms out there and that will award belts eventually based on time. So maybe you're someone out there that, you know, you eventually will get your purple belt if you're sitting at blue, if you keep showing up twice a week for like 3 years or whatever. And then the coach is like, well, fucking, you know, old mate Johnny over here has been showing up twice a week, you know, blah, blah, blah. They've been a part of the club. They're a big part of the community. You know, they're a good guy. Let's just chuck them a purple belt. You know what I mean? But there's always going to be levels to the game. If you have that guy that rocks up and is a competitive purple belt to your gym, or even a competitive blue belt, and they train 6 times a week or whatever, they're going to smash you, most likely, depending, obviously, on factors. But don't be surprised if you get towed up by a blue belt if you're not a very good purple belt. There's levels within levels. And
I've met people who met with and trained with people who definitely would have reached their ceiling in terms of skill at blue belt, and have essentially like never gotten any better than that, yet, today are wearing a black belt.
Wow.
So like, yeah, but I mean, there's also it's a whole nother conversation I've spoken before about, like, for me, I think there's 3 different categories as to how you grade students. Your student falls into one of the 3 or 2 of the 3 of the categories, and you kind of have to grade slightly different depending on which category they fall into, but that's a whole different conversation. So, but yeah,
you have to share the categories now.
Oh shit! All right. Well, so for me, I think I try to look at which category the student falls into, whether they are a hobbyist and they're just purely doing it as a hobby. And also, I should say, I guess a subcategory is age, right? Because like I've had students who start jiu-jitsu and they're in their 50s. And if they were always compared to the 18-year-old, like, I mean, man, like you can't compare those two, but does that 50-year-old not deserve to, like receive progression and belts and whatever? But anyway, so whether they're a hobbyist, so people either fall into that category or they fall into one of these other 2 or both of them, which is they're pursuing it from a competitive sport point of view, or third, they want to teach and be an instructor. So sometimes people will want to compete and be an instructor, or they're just one of the 2, But so, for example, if someone wants to really simplify it, I go, well, if someone wants to be an instructor and they want to teach, it's like, well, okay, do they really understand the techniques? Like, where's their knowledge at, right? Essentially, to simplify it. If they're someone pursuing it from a competitive point of view, well, then obviously your competition results matter. And then if they're just a hobbyist, well, like it's a whole different category. Like you can't hold them to the same standard. Obviously, it gets a bit trickier when you get to higher belts because, like, something special about a black belt or whatever, I think. But yeah, it's just unrealistic, and I think it alienates a huge percentage of people who enjoy the sport of jiu-jitsu if there was only one bar that was set. And I've told this story before, but there used to be only one bar set back in the early days in Rio, when my coach's coach Jacare was training with all Hulse Gracie and all the Gracie family and everything. They only had one grading a year, right? And it was essentially what would have been the equivalent of the World Championships at the time, the biggest competition of the year in Rio. There was only one grading a year, and that only went to the person who won the competition. So one of each belt, I guess you could say, went out. So there was only one blue belt a year. You had to win the comp, and then there was only one purple belt a year. You had to win the comp, and then that went on for a while. And then they realized the lack of progression, and people who could have gone on to become amazing stars, they quit jiu-jitsu because, the lack of reward or whatever. And then from there it went, you had to make the podium. If you made the podium, you got your next belt. And then obviously it's now not the case like that anymore. But you can imagine how alienating the sport would be. Obviously then the people who did it would be pretty elite. But we all know that jiu-jitsu offers a lot of benefits on top of just the competition side of it. So they're the 3 categories, right, that I take into consideration. I also take each individual's personal situation into account, that doesn't mean I guess maybe I could say I cut some people some slack, but not in a way that, I'm passing people that should fail, but I'm just, I treat every individual as an individual, and for some people it's different, I might, whatever, maybe I know something particular, some personal information about this student that makes me see their jiu-jitsu journey differently to other people, those factors come into my decision. And again, one of the things that people love about jiu-jitsu, maybe one of the things that people hate about jiu-jitsu as well, but how do you get your belt in jiu-jitsu? Well, it's up to your instructor. If you don't like him or you don't like his metric or decision-making process, there's plenty of gyms you could go to where it's much easier or much harder.
Take it from me, guys. Change your gym, you get your belt like that.
Yeah. I mean, I personally sought out a particularly difficult gym to get belts at, but yeah, that's the categories. I want to move on already. It's 30 minutes and we've only spoken about one of the reasons why people suck at jiu-jitsu.
That's probably the most important though.
Yeah. Well, it's why I put it as number one.
Oh, yeah.
So the next one, all right, which is quite simple, but this is maybe just me telling you to cut yourself some slack. I just want to say, sometimes you just got to trust the process. And
it's funny. We've just broken everyone down, and now we're building them back up.
Building them back up.
We love you.
This is more maybe targeted to newer students who have maybe not yet had someone say this to you, which once said, you'll be like, oh my God, that's incredibly obvious. But a lot of people don't realize it. And I know I didn't when I was a white belt or even blue belt. I can't remember the first time someone said this to me. But typically, unless you're at a competition every week, the measurement for your progression is against your training partners. And usually a lot of people train at the same gym at the same time. So they have, even at the biggest gyms, they, have people the same sort of people they roll with all the time. And so you can't quite see because you're inside, you're in it. And you're comparing yourself to your training partner as to whether you're getting better or not. And you're not making any gains against those 2 or 3 guys or whatever. But they're training just as much as you. Not everyone is, but, for argument's sake. So you're comparing yourself against someone who's also training as much as you're training, and they're also getting better. So you don't feel like you're getting better because you're not making any progress against this individual who is also not making progress against you, but like you are both leveling up.
Yeah.
And I know, just ripped on people, but now I'm saying, I don't want you to go easy on yourself because it's actually quite opposite to the way I think. I'm a big fan of being your own worst critic. I had this conversation with someone a couple of weeks ago. You know how people will say, oh man, you're your own worst critic, as in to tell you to stop being so hard on yourself.
Yeah.
I actually don't believe that. I think you should be hard on yourself. You should be your own worst critic. But
we did a whole episode on this.
Oh, did we? Yeah, right. Okay, we'll go back, listen to that. Right.
I'm just trying to find what episode number it was, but yeah.
But yeah, so you have to sometimes, sometimes it's not as doom and gloom as people think. They're having this plateau and you have your ups and downs, but over the long run, it's going to be a net gain. And if you're only comparing yourself to your training partners who you train with all the time, who train just as much as you do, you're all getting better together.
Yeah.
But it can definitely feel like you're not progressing.
Tell you what's funny. We have episode 22. Your jiu-jitsu sucks, and it's because you're too easy on yourself. And it says,
there we go.
Adam goes into details to why you should embrace self-critique, self-criticism, and use it to your advantage to drive self-progress and improvement. And the thumbnail says why you suck at BJJ.
Nice.
We're becoming predictable, bro. We've come full circle. Yeah. And that, episode number 22 published in like 2021 or something.
Yeah. But Yeah, so I definitely would have said something. I probably would have mentioned this. I think it was Cron Gracie who said in an interview once, just this drive from never being satisfied. If he tapped someone in a roll, like it wasn't good enough, he was like, "Nah, I want to tap him twice in the roll." He's like, "Taps him twice in the roll. Nah, not good enough. I want to be able to tap him without using my left arm or something." Just like never satisfied.
Yeah.
And I believe in that big time. And I think you should be allowed to. Like people. I only use the expression of the day with your "you can't have your cake and eat it too." Why is it that people? It's all well and good to fly this flag, or we tell people that, man, it doesn't matter what people think. It has to come from within. As long as you need to learn to love yourself, and you need to be happy, and blah 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 blah. Why can we have this sort of internalized, it's all important about how we think about ourselves and how we feel about ourselves to be a happy, successful human being? So why does my internal opinion of myself be so important, but yet then I'm not allowed to have an internal, like, critical opinion of myself? Like,
yeah, you make a good point.
I look at that as kind of like, well, you can't have your cake and eat it too, bro. Like if it's so super important that, like, man, you need to be happy with who you are as a person, and body image stuff and all this sort of stuff, right? That I'm not disagreeing with, but I'm also saying, like, well, doesn't my critiquing opinion matter too?
Yeah, so long as it's healthy. I think that some people hate themselves, and there's no benefit to loathing yourself. And nothing you do is good enough, because then your life is going to be miserable. So I think that's where it comes from, because I think the majority, well, not, I won't say the majority, but I would wager that more people have a problem with self-loathing and, like, beating themselves up every day in, day out, rather than when they're being self-critical and actually being constructive. That's the only thing I'd say. I think maybe you're unique in that perspective.
Yeah, I mean, obviously that could bring a guest on who's a mental health professional or whatever. It's a whole different thing. I'm not wanting to
jiu-jitsu, be critical of your fucking jiu-jitsu, and I like what you're saying about. I remember I think it might have been in episode 22, you said something along the lines of, in a perfect world, if you start jiu-jitsu after someone else, so say you join a gym and you've got, like, I don't know, someone who's already got a blue belt when you first walk in as a white belt, and eventually you start training, blah blah blah, and then you're trying to catch them, and you're like, oh, why do I always get subbed by this blue belt? Why can't I never win a roll against them? And you were saying that in a perfect world you should never catch up. In a perfect world, you will never ever ever be as good as whoever started before you, like, years ahead of you, that is, because, like you just said then, that you should be progressing at the same pace, right? And they've started before you, therefore they'll outpace you. But it is so satisfying when you catch up. You've
just actually said something that's made me a little bit sad, that I've just, like, had this realization now of, a big chunk of my jiu-jitsu that I no longer have, that I miss, which is the chase. And I don't mean that as before people bag on me. I say all the time, pretty much multiple times every single episode, that I'm not that good at jiu-jitsu. There's people way fucking better than me at jiu-jitsu. So of course there are plenty of people for me to chase, but I'm at a different point in my life and career, but I missed that as I was coming through the ranks. Man, I miss the chasing people. And yeah, it was hard. Like, there were people who I tried to chase who were on the mats as much as me, and I was twice a day, every day, drilling in between classes, and they were already 1 or 2 belts above me, and I never caught them, right? I don't know now, because on a graph it, like,
you catch them when they're older than you, and
but it starts to, I don't want to say a black belt at things level out, but for an oversimplification, right, it starts to level out towards the top, so to speak. But yeah, like, the people who, you knew that, like, you train a couple of times a week more than them or something, and you catch and and then when you catch them and then like catch them, but I'd feel a little bit bad for them, but I'd also be like, yeah, catch you, like
I don't feel bad for them at all. I have a laundry list. I have a laundry list of people that are now on that like cross off. Yep, got them.
Yeah.
When we got them, I don't mean like win one roll. I mean like, yep, definitely can smash now. Can smash.
Yeah.
And I've told this on the podcast before, and it's pretty fucked up. It's I probably shouldn't be sharing this publicly because it is a little bit twisted. But what I do a lot of the time is if someone used to smash me, it's normally the blue belt level. When I was coming out as a white belt, obviously the blue belts would put the smash on, right? And there's been a couple of times where I've been submitted consistently with the same submission by certain people. Now when I roll with them, even to this day, I always hunt that one submission that they used to smash me with. I always hunt for it and only go for that. And there's one in particular. One day I've told this story, but apologies for people that remember it. There's one particular session I'll never forget. As a white belt, I got fucking smashed back to back by Dan and Jake, both of them in one day, and they both kept hitting the exact same submission on me. It was a bow and arrow choke from the back, and I didn't even know how to do a bow and arrow choke at the time. Because I was white belt, very, very aggressive with them, but they would just fucking hammer me, and I was so like, down about it. I was like, fuck, when you hit you were talking about a couple episodes ago when, you saw that look in Chad's eyes and felt that he was like a little bit crushed. But, I pretty much went through that experience, felt absolutely fucking crushed, felt like a piece of shit, felt like I was terrible. But now getting a bow and arrow on either Dan or Jake is so satisfying.
Yeah.
So I guess they could be happy that, they got that idea into my head and they helped me get better. Like, at the end of the day, they helped me get a lot better. So thank you to those two, but I still hunt for it.
Yeah. Well, it'd be easy on Jake now because he doesn't train, but Dan's back defense is so good. He's so hard to finish when you're on his back. Which comes from him getting his back taken all the time, but his back defense is very, very good. Sometimes guys, it's there's light at the end of the tunnel. You are getting better, and you just got to trust the process a little bit. The next one, man, we don't have to spend long on this, or we can because we've spoken about it so many times, but you can't have any sort of conversation about, hey, maybe you're not doing this and it's a reason you're not getting better at jiu-jitsu, which is deliberate training. This we've spoken about many times. So for not everyone listening will be a regular listener, but you can go back. There's plenty of episodes we've spoken about it, but just briefly, deliberate training is making sure you're actually turning up with a purpose. And if we want to go back to like the first point of you're not training enough, you're only training twice a week. Well, for some people, that's all I don't want to say that's all they have time for because we've argued about that before as well. But some people only train twice a week and they're never going to change it, right? But like, let's say I've got 5 things on this list. Okay, if you're not doing any of those 5, right? Like, it's not like you need to do all 5 of these. These are just some of the reasons. So maybe you're training twice a week. That's never going to change, but maybe you're also not training deliberately. And so, this could help you get better even with those turning up twice a week. Deliberate training, guys, means turning up with intention, having some idea what you're going to work on. What are you working on? It's the main reason for our new reoccurring episode we do every 10 episodes, like every 145, 155, 165 episode, where Kieren and I go over what we've learned over the past 10 to 12 weeks working on our particular deliberate training technique, position, whatever it is. Because if you don't focus on something, right, you're just at the whim of like doing whatever when you walk into the gym. And the same analogy I've given all the time, no one walks in to a weightlifting gym and fucking 3 bicep curls, that'll do. Now I'm going to go over and jog on the treadmill and like, hey, look, there's a Fitball. I might do, some of those silly ab things on that. Like, people at a minimum walk in knowing they're doing oh, I'm doing legs today. Even if they don't know what exercise, what reps, what weight, at least they know they're doing legs and they go in with a purpose, right? As a minimum. Yeah. And so your jiu-jitsu should be the same. And my advice is to split it up into 3-month blocks. So you work on something for 3 months, because that might seem like a long time to some people, but honestly, like you don't even necessarily get that much exposure to it in 3 months, because maybe the thing you're choosing to work on is, bow and arrow chokes, right? From the back, or collar chokes from the back. And you might go weeks without taking someone's back in a roll, or you might go weeks where you're turning up to class and it's all specific training from half guard or close guard or stand up or whatever, and you don't even get the opportunity to get to someone's back. And so my advice is to split it up into 3-month blocks. I know that Gordon Ryan does it in 6-month blocks. Obviously, he's fine-tuning stuff to a level way beyond not just us, but really anyone else in the sport.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And after 6 months, he looks back at, Gordon Ryan from 6 months ago. And if he's happy with the improvement, he moves on to a new 6-month block. If he's not, he changes his training and then continues another 6-month block of the same technique, position, whatever it is that however him and John structure it. So add some level of deliberate training, because even that's not going to box you in. You're still going to get plenty of opportunities to do shit and work on shit that's not related to your deliberate training, because your coach will teach something else or whatever. But definitely have a focal point. A bit harder in the beginning. If you're a 1-month-old white belt listening to this, no, you're still in the very early. Definitely be trusting the process at that stage. You haven't got enough. You haven't got enough foundation yet to really be able to pick a focal point, I don't think.
What helped me in the beginning, I didn't really have a focal point. I had a list, and this was based on your advice, where it's like you need to pick all the major positions, top and bottom, and know at least one move from them, preferably 2. So that's how I did it. I made sure that no matter what position I was in, I had 2 go-to things I can try for. And it really helped a lot. And that's what I would recommend.
Yeah, that's advice I give to all of my beginner students who have this come to me, or I can tell they feel lost and confused, and like they're just kind of like, man, I'm not grasping this. And for me, it's very similar to when you, if you're learning a second language, and anyone listening who speaks a second language, but they learnt it later in life, so he didn't grow up speaking both languages, would probably agree that you go through this period of kind of like, man, like I've got all these little abstract sort of words and sentences, and I kind of like they're connected, but I'm missing so much. Like I need someone to like plug me into the matrix or whatever. Like it's all just foggy, and you almost can see it, but you can't. So people who are in that sort of phase, I say exactly what you just said. Well, there's 5 main positions: close guard, half guard, side control, mount, back control, top and a bottom, 10 positions. Imagine you're playing a game of bingo, right? You got to get 1 for each.
Exactly.
So then at least when you're in a roll, obviously that's very dumbed down. More experienced people would know, but it's very dumbed down. At least then when you're in a roll and you find yourself mount, bottom, at least mount, escape. You might not be able to do it, but at least you're not there going, I have no idea what to do. Find yourself side control top, right? At least you might know one submission or one, going from mount, side control to mount is a technique in itself. One move, whether you can do it, okay, but you're not just there lying on top of them, side control, squeezing, going, oh, I don't want them to get away and I have no idea what to do.
Yeah.
And then you build from there.
You get that frozen point where you like don't know what to do in certain positions. I think that you need to have at least 2 key ideas in each. And there's a lot of moves when you list it all out. It's heaps. So it'll keep you busy for a while. And then when you get to that point, once you've mastered them, then you can go on to the training that we're recommending to you, which is pick one area to focus on. I think you need to have a broad understanding of the very basics of what the sport is before you can then pick something like one thing and focus on that for a 3-month period. So for those people out there that are in that situation, you need to do that. I was going to talk about this as my twist it and make it my something interesting, but I think it's better suited to be here. I got a backup, don't worry. Is I actually ran my wife's cousin Isaac through his first jiu-jitsu class yesterday. So it was no gi. We're training. The session was 2 hours. So I pretty much had a 2-hour private with him. What I did with him in the beginning is I took him through, that beginner's class structure that you taught me in Sydney. I ran him through that, but it's only, it's like 20 minutes really. And he's very, very athletic. He's played sport his entire life. So he's picking up movements very, very easily and very quickly. So I ran him through that, right? And then I was like, okay, what would I want to know if I was in his position? And I wanted to familiarize him with all the key positions, right? So that's what we did. I tried to give him, a taste of one thing from all the key positions. And then I did something a little bit weird, and I'd like your take on it. I actually had the idea that I wanted him to experience jiu-jitsu rolling, right? Because as a young guy, he's 18, a young guy, very athletic guy, can move his body, can look after himself. So that's who we're dealing with. I think that in order to get him interested in the sport, one of the most important things would be to have him experience what the sport is. When I did my first trial class back in like 2016 at a Gracie Baja in Sydney, they didn't let me roll. And I did 2 trial classes because I was really interested, but I wasn't quite sure. They didn't let me roll at all. You have to like sit and watch or whatever. They don't let trial classes roll. So you do shitty drills and whatever. And it didn't get me hooked, right? I was interested, but it wasn't enough. When I did your trial class, you were like, do you want to roll? Like, do you want to spar? And I was like, fuck yeah. And you threw me in. And I got like 10 minutes of rolling. And then for the last round, I sat out and we had a chat about, stuff. But it was the rolling that got me hooked. You know what I mean? So I was projecting myself onto him. So I took him through in like an hour. I was teaching him as we were going, but I did specific training with him. I did positional training. And then I literally just rolled with him and then threw him in with the class. What do you think?
Yeah, for me, I personally, my first ever jiu-jitsu class, I rolled in it. And I think if I was to give, like if someone had gun to my head and they're like, day one student, never done jiu-jitsu, first class ever, do they roll or not? I would say no.
Say no. Yeah.
They don't.
Yeah.
But it's not because they're, at least not in my gym, it's not because they're going to get hurt from one of my students. It's that they tend to hurt themselves.
Yeah.
Like even against the most well-intentioned partner, even against me or something, like they just twist and spaz in a way, or they try to bridge or push you off and then they tweak their back because they're not used to that. But, in my gym, I would say probably like I'm 50-50 whether I let that trial student roll or not on the first day. And I can kind of just tell by the way, like how coordinated they are, I can kind of make the call whether whether they would be competent or safe. But even the ones who don't, I always say to them, man, don't worry. I'll just have you sit and watch this roll because I want you to have a better idea of what, you can watch these guys. This is what it looks like to actually train jiu-jitsu. This is the best part that you're watching now, right? This is the actual doing. And I take the opportunity to explain to them how it's like sparring, but you don't get knocked out, right? You get to tap and then go again and blah, blah, blah. But I say to them, if jiu-jitsu is something you do, I say, man, don't worry. Like you roll in every single class. You have all the time in the world. Yeah. You have all the time in the world to get beat up and beat up other people in a friendly, loving way, so it doesn't have to be today, right? The most important thing for me today is for you to leave here, buy a gi. No.
Click the link in the email, put your credit card in.
I say the most important thing for you to leave here today is for you to have had fun, gotten a better understanding of what jiu-jitsu is, and to be uninjured. I said, I don't care if you wake up tomorrow and have muscle soreness, but the last thing I want is for you to wake up tomorrow, and even if you're not injured, but wake up and be like, oh, dude, my fucking neck. Oh my God. Like I don't want that for your first ever. Yeah. Like it's just not good. But yes, everything you said is true as well. Like the rolling is the best part. Like some people, the hook that they need is to, that realization of how easily someone else just beat you up. And you're
that's what I needed.
My fucking God, like I need to learn that. Right.
That is exactly what happened to me. I will never forget my first class. I will never forget it. Like my first proper one, not the Gracie Baja shit. That was, no offense to Gracie Baja, but this particular one was dog shit. But after your class, when I actually got to roll properly, and guys were
can you
looking
remember
after
who? Can you remember who you rolled?
Who I was
with?
rolling? No, fuck no, God no. I remember who I rolled with in my first week because I remember very key moments. Because it wasn't just then; it was multiple key epiphanies. Like, and there were certain people that I've even said to their face to this day, like when I was a white belt, the amount of grip strength that I perceived you to have, you scared me. Like I was like, holy shit, this guy is incredible. And now the same people are complimenting mine. So it had nothing to do with strength in that case. Yeah, obviously, yes, they were very strong, but it was all the technique and I was like, oh my God, I used to think you were like an iron. You were made of iron and steel. Like I couldn't move you. I couldn't shake. I couldn't do anything to you. I thought you were superhuman. And obviously they get chuffed about that, but that's how these day one guys or these week one guys perceive
and you're like, and now you're an embarrassment.
I didn't put it in those words, but that was the implication. No, but it's obviously, there's levels, blah, 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 blah. We've said that a million times, but I always try to remind myself what it was like being super early in my journey. And I see, in Isaac, he's similar, obviously a lot younger than me when I started, which is to his advantage, but very similar, like athletic, outgoing, like really keen to rip in. And I just saw myself there and I was like, what would I have needed in this session? And I would have absolutely needed to roll. And if I was playing things by the book, like you've taught me, is they don't roll, they sit out and watch. But for a 2-hour period, I had him, we were doing shit for like, an hour, over an hour, like on a full-on private one-on-one, off in the corner, doing our own thing. So I had plenty of time to assess. And this kid picks up shit quick. It was super impressive. Like he was doing legitimate, like the beginnings of legitimate technique, particularly when we were doing positional training of legitimate jiu-jitsu technique. But he was just figuring it out on his own. I was putting him in situations and giving him little prompts, like how would you get your back to a clear example? I had a seatbelt on him. And I taught him how to escape back, like what he needs to think of. And I was like, okay, how would you get your head and shoulders to the mat in this position? Okay, my arm's in the way because I had the seatbelt. We're on the bad side, if you will. And he was like, well, I would pass your arm over my head. And then he literally passed my arm over his head like a standard, escape. And I'm like, fucking brilliant. You figured it out. Well done. Like,
Kim grabs the pen and paper. Wait, do that again.
So I drew diagrams. No, but legit, super impressive. But, not to talk about how impressed the guy is, but whatever.
Yeah, everyone's different, right? Like I said, like if it's a yes or no question, yeah, I would
obviously
say
it's a no. Yeah,
no, because it's like safety first.
But
yeah, I would say like half the time, it's the trial students in my gym will have a role, some type of a role in that first class.
Yeah. But it was super, super funny though, right? Last thing I'll say on it, right at the end, like, because I threw him in with, he just decided to jump in and roll with someone when I was rolling. And then I got him for the last round. And I'm like, do you want a light roll and we'll learn again? Or do you want like a proper roll, like a harder roll? And he's like, yeah, let's have a hard roll. And I'm like, yes.
Yeah. You just got to put some smash on him.
Yeah. Obviously I was going like 50%, but just, oh man, you forget that. Well, you don't forget, but like, day one guys and even like month one or year one, so tense. Everything was maximum strength, maximum effort, like the amount of force that he was trying to generate. And obviously with the technique, I was like flowing, barely even breaking a sweat or whatever. It's crazy, man. The sport is crazy.
So the guys you mentioned who smash, you have those memories of them smashing you, Dan and
Yeah.
Jake. So they were two of my first students the week I opened the gym. So there was a big period of time where it was just, the classes were just us three. And so obviously I did a lot of essentially like these 2-person privates with them, and I would roll with them and they would roll with each other and so on. And I remember one stage, I don't know where they were at. Like, did they have a stripe on their belt or not? I can't remember. But I remember one day they asked me, they were like, oh, how, like, when you roll with us, like, how hard are you trying? Like if you had to put a percent on it, like how hard are you trying? And I was like, oh, it's like, I don't know if you want to know, like, do you actually want to know? And they're brand new, right? Like, and they're like, yeah. And like, how many percent? And I was like, I don't know, maybe like 2 or 3, and they were like, what? They couldn't believe it. And I was like, yeah. And then I have this old video. I don't know if I have it anymore actually, but this old video of where I'm like rolling with Jake and I'm lying on my back and he's trying to pass my guard and I'm not using my hands and I'm just filming him with my phone, and he was just getting so angry. Like, because by this time I'd built up this, I know this sounds like I'm a horrible instructor, but I'd like become quite good friends with them by this stage, to the point, like, I mean, I went to Jake's wedding, right? Like, so we became quite good friends, and yeah, I'm like filming him, laughing at him, and he's getting all angry and grumpy because he can't play. He's like, you're not even using your arms. And it's like, bro, so funny.
I have a question on that. When there's a huge skill / weight / strength, or all the three differential between me and my training partner, sometimes I do that. Is it based on you telling me that story? Is this a dick move to do that to someone and like just sit back with your hands to your chest and like try and let them pass your guard without using your hands?
Is
it a dick move? I do it all the time, bro.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if it would fall under a dick move. I don't know. It's just like giving yourself a handicap.
Yeah, but at the same time, you can interpret it as making fun of them. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, it's true. Yeah, I don't know. Case by case basis.
I think if they're a white belt, it's okay. If they're a colored belt, maybe not.
Yeah. Especially if they're a colored belt who outranks you, and you're just like do.
That'd be funny.
Yeah, one of the things that Hickson used to do, or at least I don't know if Hickson used to do this, but I got it from one of his black belts, was that what he would do to kind of give himself some sort of a handicap was just roll with 2 tennis balls in his hands. So, and this was in the gi, right? This is well before the explosion of no gi as well. So then, he could still like frame and push and whatever, but he essentially like couldn't grab anything, and then it was kind of like, and this was black belt rolling with whatever, white, blue belts. And he would say, well, if I drop a ball, like that's like you submitted me, he's like, and then they'd just have normal rolls. And then that also then trickled down to, I gave that advice or that, little technique, if you will, of using a tennis ball to Samir, who was one of my blue belts who had a really bad like hand injury or finger injury or something, or maybe his wrist, but there was just something that, and he comes from judo, so he's very used to gripping. And people who train know what it's like when you're in the roll. Like, I mean, you grab shit, even if you're being mindful not to. And then he was able to come back to training and train normally. He would just always, for quite a while, for a couple of months, he would roll holding a tennis ball, and it was just a way to force him he couldn't make grips and worsen his injury.
I think it also depends on who you are in the gym that you're training at. If I rocked up to my gym with fucking holding tennis balls, people would not like that.
Yeah.
But if I did it in your gym, it might be different depending on who I'm rolling with.
Yeah.
It'd be way different, and I don't know, it's just a different sort of thing. But that's funny. I like that a lot.
All right, next one. So this would definitely be on your list, Kieren, but another reason that you are not getting any better is you're not competing. You're not
Bruh.
doing competitions.
Mate.
I think, and this is coming from someone who never particularly enjoyed competing. It wasn't something that came very natural to me. I mean, I did it all through the belt ranks. But it's just so valuable to your progression in jiu-jitsu. It just forces you to get better. Mistakes made in comps cut way deeper, so you work way harder to rectify them.
Oh yeah.
You know, it gives you even. I'll give you a very simple way to think about it. Like, even if you go and lose in the first 30 seconds of your first match, providing you went into that competition with this whole like, I'm doing this competition in 2 months. I'm not saying you're doing a camp like a UFC fighter, but you're like, yeah, I'm going to fit an extra session in a week, and I'm going to I'm not going to drink on the weekends because I got this comp coming up and blah, 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 like whatever. Even if you lose the comp straight away, you still got all those gains. The preparation you put in for the comp is still progress. Providing most people who do a competition, even the most casual competitor, will put in a little extra work than their usual week-to-week, month-to-month training regime. The typical person will put in a bit extra in preparation for the comp. So even if you lose straight away, and I'm disregarding all the value in doing the comp, like go lose. And then, like I said, that loss is going to hurt way more than if you get tapped in the gym from a footlock or whatever. And you're going to leave the comp and go back to the gym probably way more like, no, I'm never getting tapped by that again, or I'm never getting, so competing is an incredibly valuable way to progress at jiu-jitsu.
I could not agree more. I think I like the way you've worded that a loss in competition cuts so deep that it gives you like that, for some people, that hunger they need to fix whatever blaringly, like whatever mistake they made, and just to never let it happen again. And you learn, like you fucking learn, man. We've told the story recently, but when I got stuck in that triangle for ages, I got put in the triangle in the first like 30 seconds in the match, and then for like a minute I was in this fucking triangle. I know that you remember. I became the anti-triangle guy for months, for like a year. Yeah. Really, I was like obsessed with triangles. Like I would never fucking get triangled again. And now it's one of my best positions to avoid or to escape from is a triangle. I still get triangled from, but it's rare now. But it was happening all the time. But it took me to have that experience in the comp for it to really cut deep. And I've had other silly things where I've done some dumb shit at white belt and got beaten in silly ways. And it just, it cuts so deep that you never let it happen again. The most recent comp I was at, I was waiting for Filippo to compete, my training partner of mine. And I was watching another match across, and this guy was getting smashed. He had his back taken. The guy was going for a choke, but he crossed his feet in the guy's lap, and he got footlocked. The classic, cross your feet, get footlocked. And he lost. He had to tap a blue belt. Insane. And the guy that won was like, yeah, just like he won worlds or whatever, and was laughing and shit, like, can't believe that just happened. But I'm telling you, the guy that lost the match because he crossed his feet in the lap and wasn't aware of his foot positioning, I'm telling you, he will not make that mistake again.
Yeah, he'll never let that happen again.
No,
guaranteed. No. But yeah, I just want to double down on that and repeat it again, because a lot of people don't compete due to the, what if I lose, or the embarrassment of losing or whatever. Like I said, as long as you're like the typical person and you put in a little bit of extra work in the lead up to the competition, like that progress is not lost.
Yeah. Even
if you go and don't make weight, right? That
okay, if that happens.
So competing's an incredible tool.
Definitely.
It's kind of like another analogy I give to my students is like, okay, guys, like you don't need to be a competitor or pursue jiu-jitsu as a career, but I'd like you to compete at least once at each belt. Say, because at the moment, without doing that competition, you guys are no different than people who keep turning up week in, week out to football practice, but then on game day, you're always on the bench. Like you never actually get to play a game of football. Like, that's the best part. Like that's the sport, like, so try at least for people who really are against it, man, a minimum one comp each belt, I say, like that should be mandatory.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think of an instructor, brown or black belt level, who has never competed before, but they're a coach? Never competed.
Yeah, like I think that is, you can't bring John Danaher into the conversation because he's the exception to the rule. I think a coach who has never competed is not a good coach, really. Like, because this was a conversation I had with Fabio because I wasn't that keen on competing. I didn't really enjoy it as much as others, and was always more interested in the instructing side. But he was like, what are you going to do when you have a student who wants to compete and has questions about competing and what it's like competing and needs advice on competing, and how are you going to help him? How are you going to coach him when you've never been on the mats being coached by someone, knowing what's good advice to hear, bad advice to hear? I think be kind of like there's probably chefs in the world who are allergic to seafood but can still probably prepare a pretty nice, seafood dish. But I would say as a whole, the chefs who eat seafood probably make better seafood dishes. Like, I mean, there's obvious, you learn through experience, right? And I think coaches who have never competed, they're just they're not as valuable to the students who want to compete. Or they've also, even that aside, that just says that coach has missed out on a huge chunk of potential progression that they could have gone through to get to where they're at.
Yeah, I agree.
So yeah, I mean, like John Danaher is famous for never competing, but yeah, he's like a very unique individual just because one dude gets away with it. And then
it's the Steve Jobs, Elon Musk fucking argument again. It's like,
yeah,
these guys
that's
dropped
right.
out of college or whatever. It's like, oh, you ain't fucking.
Yeah, like and I'm sure there's other successful coaches who do very well who have never competed. There's always going to be exceptions to the rule, but I think as a whole that if you want to be a coach and you want to be a jiu-jitsu instructor as your career, you're doing a bit of a disservice to all your future students. So yeah, compete. Yeah. All right. The last one is to essentially do your homework, is to do some jiu-jitsu study, activity, drilling, whatever you want to call it, outside of jiu-jitsu, outside of like class, I should say. And again, this is another one that would have been mentioned in various conversations, but yeah, man, like there's just so much to learn. It's such a hard sport to get good at that if the only time you ever put time into it is when you're at class, then man, you're really going to struggle to progress. And I guess I could have like piggybacked this one off of you're not training enough. Why would I study for something that I'm just doing as a hobby or whatever? So we don't need to have that whole conversation again. But this could be, let's imagine someone's listening to this podcast, this episode, and they've gone, well, no, I train 5 days a week, so that's not me. No, I'm trusting the process. I'm doing deliberate training and I compete, so another thing is, if you think like I'm doing everything possible, but are you maybe not doing that extra bit of work? Are you taking notes, right? That might not be for you, but for me, I would always take notes, not because I would ever really reread them, but just the act of pen to paper, that tangible note-taking process helped sort of file that into my brain, what I was learning. Some people watch a lot of instructionals, which is another conversation as to how to learn from instructionals. Is it good to watch instructions, whatever? But I mean, point being, you're still exposing yourself to jiu-jitsu outside of it. People drill techniques in their own time. People, go to open mats at other gyms or whatever. But yeah, if you're only doing jiu-jitsu when you're in jiu-jitsu class, you're kind of never giving yourself the chance to really focus on what you need to get better at. Yes, deliberate training helps, right? But we need more than that, because if you and I were both third year med students, okay, you're going to be struggling with a part of the course that I'm not struggling with, and I'm going to be struggling something that you're not, so obviously when it comes to study time, I'm going to be studying the thing that I suck at, that I'm having difficulty memorizing or learning or whatever. And, you're going to be studying, whatever bit you need to work on. So doing homework, doing self-study, I think is really, really important to improve. And it's something I still do to today, right? It's something you're forced to do as you get higher up as well, because a lot of problem solving you have to start doing by yourself. When you're a white belt, blue belt, whatever, you can kind of just turn to someone for an answer or an explanation. But when you then start having to figure that out by yourself, sometimes figuring it out by yourself means like researching and looking at, watching competition footage, whether it's of yourself or of someone else, or watching an instructional that might give you something or a detail or whatever. So like self-study is something, I mean, my biggest progression over the last 12 months has all come from, I don't want to say like from me as in, man, I fucking solved all these problems. I mean, I looked at there's a lot of resources available for me to learn from and pull information from. But the point I'm making is my progression over the last 12 months didn't come from me turning up to a class where I'm doing what an instructor's telling me to do, which is, yes, a way a lot of us get better, but it's not my situation. I own a gym and I teach all the time. I'm not taking someone else's classes anymore. So who do I learn from? Well, I have to study.
Learn from me, Adam.
Yeah, that's right. I learn from Kieren.
I teach you teach me.
Yeah. So I obviously go to the gym with deliberate training, which helps, but I also study in my own time, right? And I think you'll find a lot of other black belts or instructors would be doing the same, because otherwise how do they keep learning?
Oh yeah. And I think one of the best pieces of advice that you've given me is to take notes. And no one does it because it can be a pain in the ass. It's annoying.
It is a pain in the ass.
It's a habit. Yeah. It's a habit that it takes a while and dedication to formulate, and heaps of people try it, get bored of it after a week when the novelty wears off and just stop doing it. But it has been one of the best things I've done. And I love looking through my notebooks back to old stuff because there's so much golden information. And I would say that not only does it help to consolidate your information, but when I was taking notes, sometimes if I wasn't paying really, really close attention during the technique portion, I'd forget details and I wouldn't know what to write. I'd be like, fuck, I forget what we did, or I forget how to, put that into words or forget the detail there. So it forced me to pay even more attention. Like I was laser focused in on, the actual technique. And yeah, so I think that's super important. And it's really interesting as a sort of attached to that. I haven't been taking notes in Sweden because I left my jiu-jitsu notebook in storage and I didn't want to start a new one. But I'm not gonna lie. So I have not been taking notes on my notebook after classes, but I have been taking notes on the instructionals that I've been working on, because of course I've always got at least one that I'm pursuing for the 3 monthly area I'm working on, right? I try to find a resource or whatever, and I have it on Notion, which is like a note taking app. All my jiu-jitsu notes categorized and sorted out and everything. It's super super valuable to have that as well. But it's different from handwriting, so I recommend handwriting and having that separate.
I was about to ask, do you? I like really don't enjoy, for me personally, taking notes on a phone.
Oh, after the class where you're sweaty, it's hard.
Not even that. Just anything. Yeah, I just don't like it. It's the pen and paper for me that is.
Pen and paper has been shown in research to consolidate memories and learning. Is the actual handwriting? It's something to do with the actual motor connection of physically writing it. It helps to consolidate the memory. But in terms of studying instructionals, I prefer taking notes on the computer on Notion, because what I do, and this is a bit extreme, but what I do is I take GIFs. So if I'm able to download the instructional or the YouTube video that I'm studying from, I import that into editing software, take the clip that I'm interested in, make a GIF out of it so it loops, and then put that in my Notion software. So if it's something that I need to see, visuals really, really help. And I can't draw for shit. So if it's like a screenshot or a GIF, that helps so much, which is why I prefer studying instructional content where I have that accessible to me on having the notes on a computer, notes in class, and key things that I need to remember from what I did, always pen and paper.
Yeah. So they're the 5 things that I found to be the most common kind of plateau solidifiers that, so just to rattle them off again, people aren't training enough. They're sometimes being too hard on themselves, comparing themselves to other team members. They're not deliberately training, they're not competing, and they're not doing any outside study. Right. Yeah. So if anyone is feeling like they need, maybe you're feeling like you're progressing, but you're like, I want a little bit more. If there's one of those 5 that you're not doing and you can add it, I guarantee it'll be beneficial. If I had to pick the one most valuable one, it's probably the first. You're probably not training enough, to be honest, would be the first thing.
Yeah, that's the 99 percentile, right? That's like most people, the vast majority of people. Even if you say you're someone out there that's training twice per week, even if you just increase it to 3, if you can manage 3, that will change everything for you. Trust me, over a long period of time. Just up it to 1. If you're doing 3, do 4, bro. If you're doing 4, do 5.
If
you're doing 10,
more, bro, just one extra one, bro.
If you're doing 12 sessions a week, maybe cut one down.
Take a rest day.
maybe chill, bro. What are you, fucking Gordon Ryan? I'm kidding. Go for it. Train as much as you want. But if you can handle it. All right, what's just something interesting, bro?
All right, something interesting. So I actually hope that I hope but don't expect that anyone will send in the replies to this question. So I'm very doubtful people are still listening at this point. But if you are and willing to send in a reply, I'll tell my something interesting, and then you'll probably figure out what the question is by the time we get to the end. So the biggest dude that I ever trained with, or like heaviest, I should say, was this guy in Canada who was around about 320, 330 pounds, which is about 145, 150 kilos. Fucking huge, massive. Was an American football player. We were both white belts, but it was the biggest dude I've ever trained with. And I just this week saw an interview with Shaquille O'Neal, the basketball player that most people should be familiar with. And he was talking about his weight throughout his career. And he said the biggest that he got to was 415 pounds, which is like almost 190 kilos.
Whoa.
Like, and I mean, like not fat. Like the dude I rolled with that was big, that was 330, was overweight.
Whoa.
Like Shaq is however tall he is, I don't know, 7 foot something or whatever. Obviously a bigger dude, but it's like, I mean, he was a professional basketball player. It's not like he was 415 pounds and a NFL like front rower, big fat muscly dude, like, you know. And so then I just couldn't quite get my head around like how big that is. Because again, we're not talking about an obese, overweight person. We're talking about a professional athlete, you know, that, yeah, obviously strong men and that get up to that weight, but they're a lot of them overweight and very weird health symptoms that they go under. So my question is, like, I'm wondering what is the heaviest, if people wanted to send in what the heaviest person they've ever rolled with is.
So mean. Please submit these anonymously.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to say who it is. Like, I mean,
I've rolled with multiple guys that are around that 130 kilo mark. So
it's so heavy. It's like
I would say around. I'm not fat shaming. I'm just, you know, not all of them were. Anyway, about 286.6 pounds to be precise. 286.6. But I will say I've rolled with people that are around that weight that are also a belt above me and smashing, bro. So
well, there you go.
Everything. No.
Yeah,
no,
but it's
not everything.
But it's a lot of weight to move. It's very hard to deal with.
I think a lot of them, when you're that big, if they play top, a lot of them, if you are dealing with someone like that, who even if they are experienced and they're, you know, an upper belt, they pass on their knees. So if you can learn how to deal with someone when they're passing on their knees, you can learn how to deal with them, you know, and just don't. Obviously, just don't do this, don't do that, but just don't get trapped under them. You're fucked then.
Yeah, you can't let someone that big settle on you.
No, you're fucked. So
if anyone wants to send that in, let me know the biggest person. Has anyone rolled? Has anyone rolled with Shaq? Is what I want to know. Is that?
And okay, and we have to talk about celebrity belts as a shout out to Alex, who said on our last episode, had you guys talked about celebrity belts, I think you would have touched on every episode you've ever made. And that was on the previous avoid these jiu-jitsu mistakes. And now we're doing this is why you're not getting better. A lot of these things we've rehashed in the past. So if we talk about celebrity belts for a minute, then
we talked about a celebrity. How about that white belt that Shaq has? It's bullshit. There we go. There you go, Alex.
Alex, mate, there's your bingo card. Fucking hit bingo. Shout out to Alex. He's been like probably among a couple others, one of our longest term listeners ever. So yeah. Good bloke.
Yep, legend. All right.
Okay,
hit me with your something interesting.
Okay, well, I had three, and I've already said one, and I had to combine them because they're kind of lame. So a couple episodes ago, I spoke about Swedish pizza and how dog shit it is. Right?
Did you? I don't remember that.
Yeah, I did, and I said that I tried kebab pizza, right? Or you know,
I don't remember this conversation at all, and I love pizza.
Okay, well, I'm going to bring it up. I did. It might have been over a month ago, right? And I said that in Sweden, their pizza's fucking kind of shit. No offense. I've definitely spoken about this previously. So Sweden, their pizza is a bit dog shit. And their national pizza is like a kebab pizza. So what they do, they basically get a shitload of kebab meat and just dump it on top of a pizza. Some places put salad on it and like sauce, and that's the pizza. Sounds, yeah, bro, like a full-on salad on top of the kebab meat.
Sounds terrible.
It's fucking dog shit. It's so bad, dude. It's so gross. I'm sorry for yucking your yum, Sweden, but the kebab pizza has got to go, my friends. It's really, really bad, right? And then they have this other pizza. Get this. It's called the Hawaiian Special. It's Now, if you thought pineapple on pizza was controversial, it has pineapple and banana and curry. So it's a Hawaiian pizza with banana and curry, right? And then you can add chicken if you would like.
Yeah, you've kind of like lost me in terms of being on board with your hatred for the pizza at just there, because we didn't speak about pizza. There's no way we had spoke about it.
I'll pull it up.
No,
anyway, go on.
Anyway, firstly, I'm all for pineapple on pizza, right?
Me too.
So that doesn't bother me.
Yep.
I'm going to skip the banana for now. The curry thing is like, I mean, okay, obviously it depends on the curry, but in this, like that doesn't bother me in the sense that I'm not someone who's like, has to be this super traditional pizza and it's only
it's got to be Italian
mozzarella. Yeah. I'm happy to have a Moroccan lamb pizza. We have in Australia this pizza place called Crust Pizza that
American.
Australians would. Oh, he said, "Oh, okay." Well,
yes,
I didn't know.
Everything you mentioned, whatever you mentioned, like Kmart, Target, Subway, or HelloFresh, you're like, "Oh, we have this thing in Australia." It's always American companies. It's so funny.
We've got this thing in Australia. It's called In-N-Out Burger. No, which we don't have here. By the way,
pretty sure I'm googling this to make sure. It's Chicago style. It's from States, man. I think.
Chicago, isn't Chicago known for deep dish? Because Crust does not do deep dish pizza. Anyway, whatever. They do all like peri-peri chicken pizza and all these, Szechuan chili, garlic prawn pizza and all these other things. So like a chicken curry pizza or whatever would be something that I would eat. It wouldn't bother me. But then when you say the banana, it's not like I'm all for it, but my parents a while ago, they ordered pizza and they were like, just letting you know, it was like a chicken something pizza. I think it was like a barbecue chicken pizza with banana. They were like, just a heads up, this has got banana. And I was like, what the fuck are you smoking? And they said, yeah, that's what we said. But the lady was like, no, trust us. And then we're like, and then I had it and it's not like I was like, holy shit, that's good. But I was also like, oh yeah, like, I mean, I didn't have an issue with it. I haven't eaten banana on pizza since, but I didn't like it. I ate it happily and it was fine and it tasted good, but I wasn't, maybe I wouldn't order that pizza, I guess.
Yeah.
I also don't mind like hot cooked banana. It's really common in Brazil. I don't know if in other countries it is, but if you go to like the Brazilian steakhouse places, it's very common to get like a crumbed fried banana.
Yeah.
So like I don't have an issue with hot cooked banana.
So
but the kebab pizza can go. It's terrible.
I talked shit on an episode. I swear I did about kebab pizza, and then my mate Martin was like, "Well, if you've never tried it, you can't talk shit about it. You have to fucking try it." So I was like, "Okay, I'll try it."
I hate that argument, by the way.
Yeah, well, that's a decent argument. So I'm like, okay, I bought one. Didn't finish it. I threw out half of it. I'm like, I cannot eat this. It's disgusting. Okay, so kebab pizza is a no. I went to Martin's place for when we went to play Catan, and we ordered pizza. We ordered a whole bunch of different ones, and one of the ones was Hawaiian special with banana. It's basically Hawaiian with banana and curry, and then we added chicken. It was fucking amazing, bro. It's so good.
Oh, right.
It's so good. It's so good, everybody.
Yeah.
Like, you've got to try it.
I'm so glad that that was the end
yes,
of that.
Yes, bro. And then it was so good, in fact, that the following week, or like actually last Thursday, I was listening to the Joe Rogan podcast. Shout out to that. You should probably listen
Shout out to Joe.
Shout out to Joe, my boy. And there was an Elon Musk episode recently, and the start of it, they were talking about pizza. And I was at the gym when I was listening to it. I was doing a really hard workout. I'm like, fuck you assholes. I want some pizza. So I went and bought pizza. And what did I get? The Hawaiian special, bro. It is fucking awesome. It is great.
Yeah.
Everyone should try it.
Yeah. So
curry works, man. The curry on pizza works. It's so good.
Well, yeah, the curry doesn't
so
bother me at all. But yeah, the one that definitely some people would be like, what the fuck is the banana?
Yeah, the banana and the
But
pineapple
yeah, actually,
together.
it's
If you're not a
reminded me of
pineapple
it's actually, you remind me of something else. So my mother-in-law would make in Brazil like an omelet with banana in it. And it was so good. It would essentially be, when you slice a banana like lengthways and like, so she would make the omelet and put like long slices of banana in the omelet, and so good, man. I loved it. Oh man, I was really thinking about it right now. Yeah, but hey, if you were willing and on board with the curry banana chicken pizza,
yes, that's good.
Next time you have an omelet, bro, chuck some banana slices in there. I tell you, it's pretty good.
So here's what I want to throw out to the audience. What is a weird food combination that if you tell people, they're like, no, that's fucking gross, that's disgusting, but it's so good that you have to like convince them. You got to be like, trust me, just trust me. And then when people try it, they love it. Like the banana pizza.
Can I piggyback off that question and then ask if, similar to that, if people could be a weird food thing that you're like, yeah, you got to try it, but it could also be one that you kind of deep down know is gross, but you do it anyway because it comes from your childhood. No, because so for example, I'll give you one for me that, I mean, I don't particularly think is necessarily that gross, but I haven't seen other people eat it, which is, so when I was a kid, like a grilled cheese sandwich, right? Yep. When I was a kid, I didn't like tomato. And, so often you'll have like, ham, cheese, tomato, grilled sandwich or whatever.
So good.
I didn't like tomato. So I would just make mine with, instead of tomato, I'd put tomato sauce or ketchup. So I would get the bread and, like almost as if I was making a calzone pizza, really. So it's not like that crazy. You can imagine if you
ketchup,
took,
right? Tomato sauce and ketchup.
Yeah. But you can imagine it's not a huge leap. Like if you removed,
it's so different, bro.
I know it's different. But if you removed the tomato sauce and put pizza sauce, you would eat that, wouldn't you?
Yes, because I have a weird food aversion to tomato sauce. I hate it so much that when I smell it, it makes me gag.
Oh, well, then that's different. That's why
it's completely different.
Yeah. I'm not saying it's the same thing. Like, I mean, if I ordered a pizza and they used tomato sauce instead of pizza sauce, I could tell.
You don't want a refund, bro. But I love barbecue sauce on pizza. Ooh, barbecue sauce base.
But that's something I can still eat now, like as an adult shop, because it just comes from my childhood. It doesn't really bother me.
That's kind of fucking gross. I can't think of many that I have that are like really weird food combinations, but I know some people out there have some fucking weird ass food combinations.
I'll tell you another one that one of my friend eats, and I tried this sandwich and I just was like, I got like 2 bites in. I was like, nah, bro. He gets a sandwich and one side of the sandwich is Vegemite, which is not crazy for Australians, but a lot of people already are like, yeah, you lost me. Yeah. But Vegemite's gross for a lot of people. But yeah, one side of the bread, Vegemite, the other side of the bread, peanut butter. And then in between those two things goes like sliced up pickles or gherkin or whatever. Vegemite peanut butter gherkin pickle sandwich.
I hate pickles, bro. It's another like,
dude, you hate a lot of food, bro.
No, I don't. Like, you've just hit the ones that I've like. You've just hit like fucking. I don't know. You've just so happen to pick the ones I don't like. I don't like pickled food, which is why Swedish food is really hard for me because there's heaps of pickled foods and fermented foods in Swedish cuisine. And I just can't stand it. I don't know. I just don't like anything pickled or whatever. I can eat sauerkraut, but only in certain dishes because it's fermented as well. And I'm not super hot about it. You know what I mean? I'll eat it, but it's not super good. But yeah, man, I don't know if I have weird food combination. I can't think of one. I'll try and think of one for next episode if someone submits them.
All right, guys. Well, if you're still here, send in your the fattest person you know.
Send in a photo.
I want to know what's the heaviest person you've rolled with. Mm-hmm. And we want to know your weird, wacky food combinations. If it's anything, it's got to be left of field. You can't just be like, oh man, I put chocolate on my ice cream. No, fuck off. Right.
Yeah, that's
like
all
it's
weird.
got to be something a little bit weird. Okay.
Some white
Guys,
people gross.
thank you so much for listening. As always, you can find us on our socials, our multiple different socials where we are. But yeah, we're very accessible. If you need anything, send us a message. Otherwise, thank you for listening, and we'll catch you next time.